I'm Tanya LaBuick, and this is Strong Like a Girl. Today, we're going to be speaking with the first woman to become lieutenant for the Brandon Fire and Emergency Services, and someone who's done a lot of work advocating for women to go further in spaces like these. There are times in your life when you meet people who stay in your memory. Today's guest is an example of that for me. We met on a terrible day for me and a very terrible day for my father. She came to my parents' house to take him by ambulance to the hospital after he experienced a seizure and was very, very ill. I called the ambulance. I waited at the front door. It was night. It was dark. I was still in my pajamas that I had not changed from when I got a call and made my way over to my parents' home that night. My memory of Sarah was calm, incredibly calm, and that she was taller than me. And I think that stood out for me because in that moment I felt very, very small. But she looked me in the eye, answered all of my questions, gave me good information, helped me focus on her and what was next, and not how the paramedics were attending to my father. I remember her in that moment in my parents' basement, standing close to me, looking at me, not sadly, but confidently. And her calmness washed over me as I gathered myself to follow the ambulance to the hospital. It is in these moments of our lives that people like Sarah make an indelible impact. They have a very large responsibility of dealing with people in great distress, and some undoubtedly facing the worst day of their lives. I re-met Sarah a while later when we both joined a women's karate class, and with her impeccable emotional intelligence, she gave no hint that we had met another time, or even if she remembered me. You are at the height of vulnerability when you need emergency services. It takes a very special person to manage all that a situation like that entails and to show up like the people you are serving need you to. I am grateful for Sarah then and now, and today we get to speak to her about her career and all the things she is creating in that space. It is my pleasure to welcome Sarah Peto to the Strong Like a Girl podcast. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Tanya. Thank you. I'm really well. Thank you for having me.
Please correct me if this is wrong, but you were the second woman hired on to the Brandon firefighter service, right? Fire paramedic.
Yeah, I was the second in our department. I was really quite naive when I started in the fire service. I really didn't know that there were a real lack of women, so I didn't go into it trying to be the second or the first at anything. And I started in 2001 in May, and Robin Chant was the first firefighter, and then I came along 7 years later.
So can you take us back to what that was like? So why emergency services? Why fire paramedic? Those kinds of things. Why did you choose this path?
Sure. I grew up in a home where my parents were so encouraging of anything that I wanted to do, which was really quite wonderful. But I think they kind of tricked me too, because then I went into emergency services and found that that really maybe wasn't the case. Um, but I started out working at the YMCA lifeguarding. And when I started taking those courses, the different life saving courses, I just really clicked with them. I found that this was a really interesting profession. And I started looking at paramedicine as a career. And then as a 17-year-old kid, I went to the Emergency Services College in Brandon and asked them how could I be a paramedic, and they said, "Well, you can take an EMR course on the weekends. We've just opened it up to the public, so if you want to take this course, you can come here and take kind of an intro to paramedicine type of course." So I went there on the weekends as a 17-year-old kid, and then I saw all the fire trucks there and all the emergency vehicles, and I just found something that I didn't know I could be. And
Huh.
that's what kind of led to my steps to wanting to go into the fire service as well as a paramedic. And yeah, from that day forward, I focused all my energies into being able to get into that fire college and start my career.
So how old were you when you got hired on into the Brandon service?
I was so young. I had just turned 20 years old when I started. And
Oh,
I think
wow.
about that now. I have a 16-year-old son, and I really can't picture him in that type of career. But yeah, I was a kid when I
Wow.
started.
That's a lot of emotion and other trauma from other people that you would have been exposed to at a very young age. Do they teach you anything about that in fire college about dealing with people in traumatic events or how to be in those moments? I would assume, knowing you a little bit, that you also have a natural inclination to some of those things. But yeah, do they teach you about that?
Yeah, when I started, absolutely not. That was not something that was talked about. You had to be tough. Yeah, we
Huh.
didn't talk about things like that at all. So that's something that I'm very happy is changing. We're changing the conversation around that, and we want everybody to go into the fire service as healthy as they came out, and mental health is a big piece of it.
Absolutely. That's interesting to me that there was no training whatsoever, because like the situations that you would happen upon and into would be, I'm gonna guess from personal experience, problematic in lots of ways. I guess I would say, for
Yeah,
lack of a better way to describe it. Like, yeah, people, like I said in my intro, like people on the worst days of their lives, right? And so as a 20-year-old, how did you deal with that? Like, did you even at that time have things like tools that you used, or I don't know, did you spend time in nature or work out, or
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, as a young person, I mean, this has changed over the years as I've learned more about myself and learning to be
fair.
more resilient in the career. Yeah, when I was younger, I probably didn't handle it as well as I should have. Yeah, I felt like especially being a woman in the career, I felt like if I showed weakness when I first started, that probably wasn't a
Yeah.
good thing in my career. But I did have a lot of outside supports from my career. I've always had really good girlfriends. Now, obviously, I can't share a lot with them because we do face a lot of trauma that we can't speak about with people that aren't in the career. There's certainly an
Hmm.
understanding with first responders that all that we see we can't share. But over the years, I learned to cope in healthier ways. And that was definitely, seeking counseling, um, just taking care of my mental health in ways of um, like working out and having an outlet for the stress became very important.
Yeah, no kidding. What was your first day like? I'm going to assume that you weren't on the same shift as Robin Chant, right? So you would have shown up for work and been the only woman there whatsoever, right? So what was your first day at 20 years old, the only woman? I'm assuming fairly young considering some of the other folks that would have been on staff at the time. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting time. So to back up a little bit, just going through fire college was the first shock. Um,
Oh,
when
right.
my first goal was to pass the physical test, that was the most important thing to me because all I'd heard from anyone that I'd shared with that I wanted to be a firefighter was, well, good luck passing the physical. I met a woman once, she tried, she failed. So that was my main goal. After uh, passing the physical test and then going on to the written, that was my first clue that I was into something that was uncharted territory. And that was, I walked into a theater with about a couple hundred people, and it was all men, and the room went silent. And I just was in shock. I'm like, okay, this is not. I was expecting. I thought there would be a few women here, but I could tell that just the everything, yeah, there was a lot of emotion directed at me, and it wasn't really positive. Then going through the college was tense as well. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of young men in their 20s. Some of them were wonderful. Some of them I was just a threat. So I was going to somehow take all of their jobs. Um, so when I started in Brandon, it was a lot better than what I had experienced in college. Um, there was a little bit a better mix of men working there, where they were a little more settled. Some of them had daughters, some of them have wives that are
Yeah.
much more educated than themselves and have flourishing careers. So there was a little bit more acceptance there. Um, and now that's not to say that it was easy. It definitely was not. And like you said, Robin and I were not on the same shift. There was no way that they were going to let two women work together. Uh, they just didn't know how that was going to pan out or how we would ever be able to handle two women on a shift.
Of course. Yeah. I think it's interesting that you said that they were threatened that you would take their job. So I don't know this, so I'm going to ask. In the early 2000s, there wouldn't have been any kind of a quota for women in fire, paramedic, or even police, right? Like you would have had to pass all the same tests that everybody else. You would have to carry the same loads and all those kinds of things, because obviously you're dealing with things that are critical in nature. So if you can't do the job, then you can't do the job, right? So what do you like? Do you really
Mhm.
think they were worried that you would take their place, or do you think they were just intimidated by the fact that a woman could compete?
Yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack there on why why a lot of the men that I went to school with felt that way. Um, there is a this stereotype in the fire service that I think is hopefully we are going to shed it soon, and it prevents a lot of women from entering the career in the whole beginning. And that's just that very macho stereotype where you have to be so manly and tough. And I think some men are attracted to the career because of that stereotype too. So it might be rather threatening to have a young, more feminine woman in their space. Um, but yeah, I think now back to the topic on quotas, yeah, I certainly passed all the same tests that all of the other applicants did. And um, they're definitely, we still stick to that in the fire service. There's still, we don't have different tests for men or women. We're all passing the same tests, which I think, adds to the credibility in women in fire service. So that is an important thing to have when it comes down to it and you're in your gear and you're in a fire. Gender is really irrelevant at that point. It's whether you can do the job or not. Um, so when I did go to college in the early 2000s, there were some HR departments that were really pushing the fire service to include women, and sometimes they didn't always do that in the best way, and we're still learning from that. Um, to do women only hirings and different things like that. Like it is, yeah, we're looking. We want to invite women to the table, but we want to have the best applicants as possible.
For sure. When you started, did you feel pressure to prove yourself? Like you had to, like you had mentioned that the macho kind of attitude, right? So, no weakness, right? No vulnerability, none of those things showing. But did you feel like that they were watching you very closely to make sure that you could do the job?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I still, on it to be honest, in my head, like I still feel that some days as I'm treading along into still uncharted territory with stepping into officer roles and running shifts. In my head, I still have those little voices that still feel like I can't screw up. And when I first started, it was really debilitating. Like I really struggled with, if I screwed up, like I put so much pressure on myself, and I don't know if that pressure was all real. Or if it was internalized. But yeah, I really, really felt like I had to be perfect at everything in my career and nail it all the time. And yeah, there were people watching. Definitely, there were people watching and waiting for me to screw up, but, um, I had a lot of colleagues that really supported me along the way, which was really, a blessing and, helped give me the confidence to know that I can, do this job and that, I'm just as able as, everyone else I'm working with.
yeah. I think advocates are super important, whether they're male or female or whatever. But advocates that are going to stand with you and coach you along in those kinds of positions, I think, are imperative to your success. And I would tell you that obviously not a similar career to you, but have been in very male uh, centric careers and rooms that it was, I think I can look back now and say that it was very hard for them to treat me equally because I didn't feel equal. And that was things that I carried there, right? Like, having to prove myself and, all those kinds of things over and over and over again was because I didn't feel like I deserved to be there in that spot or whatever, that I had to continually earn it, right? So I don't know that it's career specific. I think it's probably how we feel overall in lots of ways as women and as we get into these different workforces, right?
Oh,
What kind
absolutely. And yeah, whether
Yeah,
it's our
sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry, Tanya.
Oh, there's a bit of
I
a
was just
lag. You
going
go
to
ahead,
say
Sarah.
like a lot. Yeah. Um, yeah, like a lot of those pressures are societal pressures that we grew up with, coming, being raised by different generations, and whether they're external or internal, they're there all the time as a woman in a career that is male dominated. Certainly.
Isn't that true? Have you seen the attitudes toward women evolve since you've started? Because how many women are now on the Brandon service?
So for a very, very long time, it was just Robin and I, and we've just recently hired quite a few women, which has been so beautiful. So there's 7 women on our department now, and that would be a higher percentage than a lot of Canada right now. And we have about 70 in operations in the fire service in Brandon. So it's wonderful, and one of the most beautiful things I witnessed in my department, and this isn't the case in all departments, I'll just say, is that um, as I watched women start over the years, it just still was a big deal. Like everyone had to comment, like whether they thought they were strong enough when they came in for their interview, or whether whether they could do the career. But recently, it's just been just a woman walks in the door, and it's not a big deal anymore, and it almost brings me to tears because like this is a huge evolution in the fire service. So and yeah, they seamlessly fit in and they can be who they are, and it's just really amazing to watch.
I love that. And it only took 20 some years. So, I guess that's progress for us in some ways. But I do love that. I think that, when you can, and we've talked about that on the chamber board, right? There was a concerted effort to have more women participate on the chamber board because there hadn't been in years past and stuff. And I always thought it was success when you stopped talking about the fact that there was more women than men on the board or an equal amount or whatever, right? That we were just seen as business people or human beings, right? And the gender was irrelevant to what was going on for the job, right? So I would echo your congratulations on that and everything. And so you were the only woman in the service for a very long time because Robin got out, right? Robin left the service.
Yeah, Robin retired a couple years ago. And then after I started, there was another woman hired about 8 years later. And then moved with her spouse to Calgary. And then since then, we had one other woman. But even just a few years ago, she was on mat leave, and I was back to being the only one. And it felt very strange. But now I walk in and there's women on every shift. And um, yeah, it's pretty amazing to see. And then just a few months ago, um, when I was promoted to lieutenant, I just had an awesome captain that day, and we had quite a few women on our shift. And so I just asked him if we could run number 2 station in Brandon with a full woman crew, and it happened. And it was the funny thing was the newer women just didn't really I don't think they really grasped how impactful that day was, but that day I spent most of the time trying not to cry because it was just,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just something I'd never thought I would see in my career.
That was my next question is whether or not there was an all women crew. That's outstanding. I remember when Robin would have gotten hired on and like people were like, well, where's she going to go to the bathroom? Like, not necessarily people in the service, but just people in the community, right? They're like, well, it's all, can she carry me out of a burning building? And I'm like, well, probably. I mean, I would think she just didn't happen into the job. Like, there were some qualifications there, right? But even the community was like, taken aback by the fact that now we had a woman in that position, right? And what's she doing there? And, where's she going to go to the bathroom? And I'm like, oh, you guys, I don't think these are real issues, right? Like, people are taking care of these things for people. So, it's just stunning to me that this is all happening within our lifetime, that like it takes 20 years to have a full, woman complement running one of the stations here in Brandon, Manitoba, Canada. Like craziness. Anyways, so good work to you and
Absolutely.
good examples. I think you set an outstanding example for women and makes them want to be able to take on that challenge I do appreciate that it is showing up every day in different ways and a lot of mental work and self talk so that you don't defeat yourself before you even get through the door. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
My question, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're doing for the Fire Service Women of Central Provinces. So tell us what that is and how it came to be and what you are doing in the middle of it all.
Yeah, I've spent I don't know, I'm one of those fixers. So if I see a gap in what people need, I often gravitate towards that because if I need it, then probably other people do too. So Fire Service Women Central Provinces came about. Now that this goes back a while ago, where I was in my point in my career where I just like I wasn't having a lot of success with getting promoted, and I just kind of felt stagnant, and I was looking for. There had to be other women out there, but you're just so isolated in the fire service. Like I said, I was the only one for a long time, and that isolation is really not. It's not healthy. You need to, be around like-minded people who've experienced similar issues and situations. And I convinced my union to pay for me to go to a conference in Ontario, and that's Fire Service Women Ontario. And I went to that conference, and it was just so impactful being around. There was like 200 other women that had, gathered together to learn and train and be better at their career. And it was the first time where I walked into a room in uniform and everyone else looked like me instead of me being the one that was the odd person out. So um, I remembered how that felt for me, and I remembered how impactful that was, and it kept me in my career and driving forward. But that the access to that for our area of the country was just not there. So a few years later, Fire Service Women BC popped up, and then I just
Hmm.
had to take a leap and try and bring this to women in the area of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. So I reached out to a few women that I knew in the service, and we sat down and we figured out how we're going to do this. And the other two fire service women organizations were so supportive. You talk about women working together to make change, like that. That's exactly what happened. They helped us get this organization off the ground so that we can have the same type of allyship and support in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. So, what the organization does is we provide training opportunities for women that they might not get in their own departments. Um, Often, women are overlooked for promotional opportunities and for educational opportunities. So, we're trying to bridge that gap. We also the main piece that we work on is advocacy for women in the fire service. So we're at the table of different leadership groups in Canada to provide our perspective from a gendered lens, and we also are trying to work with researchers to look at women's issues in the fire service that otherwise have been excluded. Most of the research on cancer and mental health and all the other issues that we might face in the fire service are always male only, and women are often in the studies are extrapolated from the data because it screws up the results. So now we're working with researchers to take a real look at the differences in gender and how we experience this career. So yeah, those are
That's
some of the
really
things that
interesting.
we work towards in the history of the very short history of our organization.
So do you have would you have an idea of how many women are in fire paramedic service in Canada?
So the numbers are very tricky. The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs does a survey every year. Those results are really tricky. So I don't have an actual number of women in the fire service, but in career departments, we're looking at around 4% of career firefighters between 4 and 7 are identify as women, and then a little bit higher in the volunteer sector or volunteer paid on call sector of the fire service. They are upwards of 11 to 15%. So, um, yeah, the volunteer service, yeah, we're really the numbers are not great, but they are improving. So that's
Yep.
the positive takeaway from that.
And it's an evolution, right? I think it's like anything, like it took years to get equity of women to men on the chamber board, and that's just because more women were entering the workforce, more women were like running their own businesses and getting to points in their businesses where they could participate on a board like that. So I think it is an evolution. It might feel slow, but I do think you're making great strides for that, and I think that's obviously very important. It always stuns me about research and how they extrapolate us. I think it happens all the time. I mean, even if you look at something as simple as ADHD, they were not diagnosing women because women present very differently than men, and the tests were all designed for men, all right, and how they present. And so women wouldn't answer the questions the same way. So I think there's just so many things that we're finding as we grow and learn, that we need to modify and kind of adapt, for the 51% of us that, are on the face of the earth, which I would say is noteworthy. But is there, so what are some of the things that you want the organization of the Fire Service Women of Central Provinces, like what would be your goals of the organization, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, what my board and myself have kind of identified, our main areas of interest are, or not of interest, of need that we've identified are like educating women, um, getting women into leadership positions, and the advocacy. So those are our three main pieces that lead us toward like into what we want to accomplish as an organization. And we are also looking at just we need to bring together women too, because a lot. I mean, we can educate online and we can offer these courses, but bringing women together and finding that mentorship for one another is a very important piece of women's success in their career. So even just we've done a few just really informal gatherings of women. In the fire service, and they've just been so beautiful because you can just see people connect and they have someone to talk to and help them through whatever stage of the career that they're in. So those are the main pieces that we're working on in the next 5 years and moving forward.
You just answered my next question. So, what kind of support or
Oh,
connection do you think um, women in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta need right now? Like, what's the number one thing that you're seeing the gap for women in these services?
there's a few gaps. But what I have, I have um, a lot of women come forward and ask, like, what they're asking me and what they're asking for is really uh, a lot of issues in the fire service surrounding policy work. So a lot of women their departments don't know what to do with them when they're pregnant because somehow that's a new issue, or if they're going through, if they need gear that fits them, or and you'd mentioned
Right.
the washrooms. Washrooms are a huge deal, and fire
Yeah.
service for women having a safe space to change and use the washroom is still an issue. Um, but yeah, a lot of
Crazy.
yeah, it is crazy. Yeah. Um, and sometimes I'm floored at some of the things that, are brought forward to me. And like, I really thought we were past that. Um, so it's really an individual experience from department to department. We have some departments that are just, amazing and light years ahead of the rest. And then we're still dealing with issues where women don't have a place to go to the washroom. So um, yeah, um, but mainly, what I like to see for um, women across our three provinces is just that ability to connect and share and help one another and mentor one another through their careers, so that we can see them from the moment they walk through the door and that they have a happy retirement as well.
Fair enough. You just recently received some recognition for this, did you not? What was that for?
Yeah. This year has been a really it's been a humbling year for myself. I feel like I've been doing a lot of quiet work for a lot of years, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'm getting recognition, and I'm not always comfortable with it, but I'm trying to lean into it. Yeah, just recently I was at the Fire Service Women Ontario conference where they recognized me with an award for encouraging and empowering women in the fire service. And that was mainly to do with my work with Fire Service Women Central Provinces. So it was kind of a full circle moment there where I'd gone to the conference, 10 years prior,
Sure.
just looking to stay in the career. And then being recognized by my peers for the work that I had done was incredibly emotional and humbling experience.
And you also earlier this year won the Women of Distinction Award for community work, right? Which is a local recognition, but yeah, it's through the YWCA of Westman. But yeah, so congratulations on that. Yeah, big year.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's good. It's
Yeah,
good.
that award was very, very special. Also, my mom, she instilled that
Yes.
community service in us. She had worked at the YWCA for many years, and I watched her tirelessly put her efforts into that organization, and serve her community with, you know, not much recognition or pay, and it's a real work of love. And then for me to be recognized by that organization later on as an adult was very, very special.
Yeah, it would have been a good moment. Yeah, I knew your mom from the YW as well. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, so we live in a small town. We live in Brandon, Manitoba, Canada. And I don't know, it changes on every day, but around 55,000 people live here. So the likelihood that you're going to happen into a situation where you know somebody when you're at work um, is
Mhm.
high, I would say, like, especially as you get more involved in the community and your kids and things like that, that you would
Mhm.
know more people essentially. So what what's that like for you, and how do you manage that? Because sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, like you're coming into a situation that maybe in someone's home or something, and probably bearing witness to things that you might not have known, or that would be embarrassing for those people, or whatever that is, right? And so, how do you manage the emotion involved in that moment of where they're super vulnerable, and you still have to do your job, right? And then obviously keeping that confidence is imperative for always, but certainly for a smaller town, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is different growing up in a community and then serving it later in the capacity that we do. To be honest, a lot of the calls I don't have a connection to people, um, but yeah, there are those times where yeah, you do have that connection to the people. Like maybe it was a teacher that you had in high school, or somebody's kid that you're responding to, and yeah, those can be very difficult. I'm a very empathetic person, so on calls, I like to just take the lead of the person experiencing the emergency, whether they want that emotional connection or not. It's something that I feel like a lot of times, to be honest, what we're doing in our career, we're managing a situation. The amount of times we actually save a life is very few, but we're trying to
Huh.
make it better in the situation that they're in. Um, so that's what I try and do when I'm there. Yeah, like just trying to make the situation a little bit better in whatever way I have, any way that I can. So if it is somebody that I know, like I said, I'll let them take the lead, but I'll try and comfort them and yeah, in the best way that I can. But there is also a job to be done as well. So sometimes we don't always have the ability to, manage everybody's emotions on scene because we have a work to do. But I like to try to always keep in mind the people that we're responding to, not just the emergency, but their um, themselves as well.
And so what do you, because that's a you're if you're an empath, which I would agree with knowing a little bit about you, but um what do you do with all that emotion, because it piles on, right? And so in my experience, because I have some people say I have a high degree of empathy as well. I get full, right? And I need to decompress. I need to, whatever that is, either hide in my basement for a day and watch television and not talk to people. But I need to do something to be able to just kind of digest all of the emotions of whatever has gone on in those moments. And so, do you have tools like that that you do, that you just kind of like check out? Or, I mean, you're on a 4 on 4 off shift. So, you don't have a lot of options sometimes for that.
Yeah, you leave work and you go right into normal everyday life, and that can be a very hard switch to turn over. But I know that like perspective is very important in our career. So that perspective of like I said, like being there for people in the moment, but then also knowing that this is not something that you take home. You have your response mode, and then you have Sarah Peto outside of the fire
Yeah.
service and outside of emergency services. So you have two hats. So you really have to separate you can't take everything personally and you can't internalize everything. There will be calls that you know that you really hit home to you, but that's when you have to really work on managing that. So yeah, for myself is having that perspective that I was there to do a job and that I was there to help and that I did accomplish those things. And maybe the outcome wasn't what we had hoped, but this is the reality of life. And then, yeah, like I try to help where I can, and that's where a lot of my community work stems from as well. I'm witness to a lot of um, not great situations in our community, and maybe I can do something in that way too in my time off. Um, helping out different organizations that help people in Brandon and the surrounding communities. I do try to have healthy habits outside of work. I'm dedicated in my fitness regimes, and dedicated to seeing my counselor every few months for a check-in when I need. And then yeah, just really appreciating. I think that's another perspective thing, is appreciating the health that I have and the health of my
Mm.
family, and then what all of the gifts that we have. Just it really, um, yeah, keeping that in mind when I come home.
Yeah, I do know. I know some of the other folks that work here in the service, and I know that they said it got a little bit harder when they had kids. It was hard anyways, but when they had their own children, um, it got a little bit harder. Particularly calls with kids and things like that, that it just impacts you. It's like a bit of a gut punch on in a different way, right? And so, yeah, I think, certainly we appreciate everything that you all do, and congratulations on the Fire Service Women of Central Provinces and all that's coming to be. I hope
Thank you.
as somebody else kind of sitting outside of that circle, I would hope that part of the curriculum that they end up teaching folks is how to deal with all of these things. And, at 20 years old, how to show up like you did. And I mean, remarkable, right? I do have a couple more questions, and then if you're open to it, we're going to do a rapid fire round, which is just some fun questions. There's like 10 of them, and it's kind of a fun way to close this off. But if you could give one piece of
Yeah,
advice to a
certainly.
fire chief or a senior officer about supporting women in the service, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I do get a lot of fire chiefs asking that question. There are a lot of fire chiefs who are really champions of women in the fire service and great allies, and they have that question a lot. Like, what can I do to make this better for women? And
Give them a
I
bathroom.
start with just talking to the women in your service. Like, just don't try and fix things for them, fix things with them. The people experiencing the fire service know best. So if that woman is experiencing the fire service, she knows what she needs. So don't don't try and fix it for her. Sometimes that over involvement just makes things a lot more difficult. Um, but yeah, just really like leadership in the fire service really just needs to be a really good ally to any of our underrepresented folks, whatever they may be. So, you know, really just being that leader and supporting and standing by them is the most important thing that they can do.
Don't fix it for her, fix it with her. I love that. That's great. Uh, what about you? What do you want for your career? What do you want to see next for your career? You want to be fire chief someday?
Well, you know what, right now I'm just seeing where it goes. Fire Service Women Central Provinces has been just the icing on the cake on my career. It's provided just amazing connections and opportunity for me that I never ever envisioned when we sat down in a coffee shop hashing this out. Do I want to be in leadership one day? Absolutely. And
Right on.
push forward, in my career as far as I can. But I'm looking forward to the next few years, just being a leader in the operations side in our department. Um, I have some really great people in my service that I get to lead that way, and yeah, we'll just take it one step at a time and see what there is there for me.
You're the first female lieutenant, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So,
yeah.
Robin didn't choose the officer route. So I'm the first woman to step into any of our officer type roles. And for those that aren't familiar with the fire service, I'm still on shift and going to calls, but there's a slight hierarchy in the fire service as to who's directing and managing things. So that's what the officers do in the fire service. And yeah, so right now I'm in the role as a lieutenant.
So congratulations on that, Sarah. That's great. And thank you very much for participating and giving us a glimpse into what it's like to have been a woman, first woman in there. And I'm sure that you're making some good strides in making it easier for all the folks that are coming behind you. So now the rapid fire is adapted from a chap named James Lipton who did it on the Actors Studio, which was a television program I watched a ton of when I was a kid. So just one word answers if you like. Not a ton of thought, just kind of your first reaction. So hopefully you can have some fun. Yeah, you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word is grit.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh, I think I'll have to take a pass on that one. There's lots. They're probably not appropriate.
What turns you on?
Hmm. Empathy,
What turns you off?
egos.
What sound or noise do you love?
Ooh, I would say when I get to go on a vacation and I'm oceanside, I love the sound of the
Hmm,
ocean.
good one. What sound or noise do you hate?
Anything that's really agitating, like nails on a chalkboard.
What's your favorite curse word?
The F word for sure. A well placed F word.
I would 100% agree with that. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. I am in love with my career. So um I would like to like sister and brothers all work in policy, which is super nerdy, but I do appreciate what they're do and I do like I do like good policy work. So I would say something in that where I could make change through that way.
What profession would you not like to do?
So many of my friends are in this profession, but I would not like to be a police officer. I admire what they do, but that is something that I would not like to be involved in.
It's not interesting considering what your career is because you guys work in tandem lots of
Yeah,
ways, right? So obviously you have a better idea
we
of what their
do.
job is than, yeah. What does strong like a girl mean about you?
Strong like a girl to me. Um, yeah. So I think it's showing up and learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable and not letting all of the societal issues and everything else that we place on ourselves get in the way.
Right on. Thank you very much, Sarah. It's been a pleasure. Congratulations on all your successes, and I really appreciate you taking time for us today.
Likewise, thank you, Tanya. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast, and I'm looking forward to all that you're accomplishing as well.
As always, you can find more information about our guests in the show notes or at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca. Follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and thank you very much for listening.